Melissa.
Such an honor being here with you.
Hi, Jeff.
So much. Can't neglect our dad. He's pretty awesome.
He's awesome.
And you know, before we get into the cigars, you just told me something that I think is incredible, and I want to get to that first. So you have a humidification system.
We do. I partnered with Belinda Doyle, who has been around the accessories humidification business for a long time. She's brilliant. And we decided that humidification was such an important part of cigars. And I'll give an example. If you take 3 cigars out of a box and you put one in a very humid climate, one in a very dry climate, and one in a normal standard humidity climate where what's good for cigars, and you smoke those cigars back to back, you have 3 different cigars. So the under-humidified cigar is going to be very papery, very flat, lack flavor. The one that may be over-humidified is going to be harsh, maybe a little bit bitter because it's burning through the humidity. And so we know how important it is. So what we wanted to do in coming up with this new humidification line is to do something better, do something that was not in the market yet. And what we're doing now is we have combined 3 different types of humidification crystals in our product. Quick release, a medium release, and a slow release crystal, of which they'll all release at 70%. And if you're over humidified, it will actually draw. It's a two-way system, draw the moisture back into the crystals. But because not everyone, checks their humidor on a regular basis, the slow release crystals, if you neglect your humidor just a little bit, the slow release crystals will hold moisture and continue to deliver humidity to your cigars. People make big investments in their cigars. It's part of the lifestyle. It's what we do. And you really want to protect your investment. We use all prescription grade components. Our propylene glycol, 99.9% pure, food grade. The distilled water that we use. We actually use an ultrasonic weld on our hygrometers. And so there's just really cool stuff. We wanted to bring it to the next level. So Teresa, this is the really cool part, the part I think you're going to like. When purchasing our product, one of the things we'll do is ask you to go to the website, fill out a small questionnaire, where you live, so we understand what the humidities are in that area, how big the humidor is, how many cigars you keep in the humidor on a regular basis, and then we will calculate a formula, and we will email you a notification when it's time to recharge your humidification.
That is awesome.
It takes a lot of the guesswork out.
I mean, anything that makes things easier for consumers. Because I mean, when you're getting into cigars, you understand that there's quality, there's so much time spent just to create this, and you want to be able to take care of it. But it's scary. I know, like sometimes when we buy a box, like we have to, is the reading always correct? Is our location? There's so much that it can be. It's just scary. So the simpler you can make it, especially if you're traveling and you get distracted with work, to know that you're always going to have a cigar that's in perfect humidification and going to be a perfect smoke.
And I think for us to try and bring it to the next level really came from the fact that we work so hard in our cigars to control humidity. That's such a key component. You learn things. I'm down at the factory every month. You learn things like, hey, if you're in packaging, I'll give an example. You take those cigars out of the aging room and you go into packaging. And they may not package everything that day, and they're not going to lug all the cigars back to aging. But what happens is, if it's high humidity that day, you have to keep the air conditioner on at night, even if the lights are off. Otherwise, you can gain 2%, 3% humidity just overnight, and it ruins the smoking experience for the consumer. So we learn all these little things, and we just realized humidity was key. So that's why the Dr. RH line that we came up with, we feel was really the next generation.
That's very exciting. We've got a lot of new things coming out today. You have this humidification system, and now we've got, I'm smoking right now, a Maduro.
The Tempest Maduro. Yes. Our first real, Maduro in a long time. We had a trilogy Maduro many years ago, but this is really our new version, our new and improved version.
What inspired you to bring to get to Maduro for those
There's actually a real story behind it, so a cool history behind it. When I first got in the business, I really knew that if I was going to survive in this business, that I had to learn. And I found a gentleman, he was 78 years old at the time when I first got into the business. He had a little factory in Miami, 12 rollers total, and his name was Carlos Fontesier. And he was 78. He grew up, his family did all the fermentation and leaves for Partagas in Cuba. So he grew up, his whole family grew up around that business doing fermentation and taking care of the tobacco sarcophagus. He learned how to roll cigars when he was 12 in his house. And I spent 3 days a week with him for 3 years. And he always talked about this Cuban fermentation process called using a product called Caño Fistula. And I never forgot that. Now, he couldn't replicate Caño Fistula because he didn't have what he needed to do it. Because Caño Fistula is actually a tree, and I'll tell you a little about it, and it's about the fruit and the pulp of the seeds and all that. So he would make these mixtures of rum or cooking sherry and all these little components, and he did his own fermentation. And I used to say, how do you take tobacco and just make it all smell so good? How do you make it taste so good? And he would say, it's in the fermentation. And what I always thought was that Caño Fistula was strictly, indigenous to Cuba. What I found out was it's that this tree grows in Central America, all throughout Central America, parts of the Caribbean, and parts of South America. But the reason I couldn't find information was because it has 100 different names, depending on what country it's in. It's actually also in the U.S. They call it the drumstick tree, the pudding pipe tree, the golden shower tree, because of all the beautiful golden flowers that are on the tree. And the Latins are very industrious people. This tree they would use, they actually call this also the disease-killing tree. So they would take this and they would, these trees grew on a lot of the plantations, they would use them for shade. If they cut the trees down, they would cut them down and use the trunk of the wood for cigar boxes. They would boil the pulp. Oh, okay, so the drumstick tree, the reason it was called that is because the fruit was a long cylindrical fruit, about 16 to 18 inches long, about 2 inches in diameter, and it had all these seeds. And when you opened it up, they would boil the pulp. And it was good to settle your stomach because it was high in iron, high in carbohydrates, high in tannins. And what they would do, this is really cool, they would take and boil this mixture. And the mixture itself had kind of a cocoa-y, coffee flavor to it. And they would mix that into the pilons during fermentation. And because it was high in carbohydrates, it would break down the molecular structure of the leaf. And actually you could ferment it for a shorter period of time and still get your desired results. So when they talk about the Cuban cigars back then having all this strength, it's because they didn't over-ferment. It took less time to ferment using this technique, and it would keep the strength in the leaf. But it also added a touch of this cocoa-y, coffee flavor to it, naturally. They weren't using substitutes. So we did a lot of research. Actually, I did a lot of research. And we found that we could get the fruits of these trees. And so we started experimenting. And we did a very small run of Tempus Maduro in just the magistry size last year. I made 750 boxes, and they went very, very quickly. And but we had been working on this fermentation, and we had finally fermented enough wrapper to come out with our new Tempus Maduro.
That's incredible. Wow, thank you so much for sharing.
It's very cool.
That's the thing I love about just the cigar world. There's always so many interesting things to learn. Hearing the stories, from 12 years old growing up and finding a way to bring that back in there.
It's interesting because it's a kind of a new old technique. We were able to take something that historically has been around the cigar business that really nobody knew about. And I really just went back into my memory and understanding what this gentleman did and how he enhanced my life in the cigar business. He was my mentor. And I think the only thing I really did wrong was I should have found a way to better honor him for what he taught me. And so this is really somewhat honoring him in the fact that what he said, when he said something to me, it meant something. And I listened. He taught me all these cool things where you look at tobacco and how they would call Nicaraguan tobacco punta lanza, point of the lance, because of the way that the leaf was shaped. Just really cool little things. And but I think he helped make me a better cigar maker today. And I'm not saying that I'm a good cigar maker, but I'm saying I'm better because of that.
I can say you are, and I think you're definitely honoring him right now. It's
Thank you.
fantastic.
So that was kind of cool for me to be able to do this. And I think the good news is also for us is that, so far in a lot of the lines that we're doing, demand has outpaced supply. And I made a decision a few years back that we were not going to change our production to meet demand. We were going to do what we do, produce what we're scheduled to produce, make sure we had the right supervision in place so that we can come out with the best products that we know how to make.
I think that's important, and people will respect you for that.
I hope so.
When people think, when it's your favorite cigar, you want that consistency, that quality every single time. You want to know that people trust you and just always know that.
Even Tim behind the camera is shaking his head yes to that. I want you to know.
Wow, thank you so much.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
This has been incredible. Everything you've shared with me has been absolutely incredible.
Well, I want to tell you something. We're a very open industry, as you know, and it's so important that people who are interested in cigars, the bloggers who are out there, the people who are out doing the videos and talking about the reviews, it is such a key component of our industry because you really get real information out to cigar smokers, and it fuels the passion for the consumer. And what it does is ultimately makes our job easier. It really does. You guys have provided great benefit to the industry, so I really want to thank you, and for allowing us to just sit down right now and allowing me to talk.
And I think the most amazing thing about this industry is whether you are a manufacturer, retailer, consumer, it's still one giant community and family.
Don't take this wrong, but it's kind of a fraternity, but girls are allowed in. You know what I'm saying? It just is. I mean, to be at a show, the IPCPR, to have people come in, you kind of witnessed what happened earlier. It's a time for all of us to catch up and be together, and that's a really, really important part because those relationships lead to great things. We all help each other in some ways. We're all competitors, but we all help each other, and with that, we all have an opportunity by helping each other to come out with great cigars for everybody. So it's great to see that everyone is busy and that people are writing business, and there's a lot of great cigars on the market right now. Now is a great time. If you're a cigar smoker, there is no better time in life right now because there's a lot of great product on the market.
That's so exciting.
It really is.
I mean, I'm almost lost for words just for everything we've been going through. This has been much, even more than I could have asked for. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on, Bob.
Oh, my pleasure.
Tim, thank you.